Pantheon AI presents Nvidia $100 billion OpenAI deal plus oil rally explained. Welcome to the PAI Morning Briefing. I'm John, and it is September 23rd, 2025. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning, John, and good morning to all our listeners. I hope you're ready to dive into the markets with us.
Let's get right to it. Kicking off with a quick market overview, it's a bit of a mixed picture. The S&P 500 is down just a fraction, about 0.1%, sitting at 66.86.
Right, but the Dow Jones actually outperformed, posting a modest gain of about 0.28%. Meanwhile, the Nasdaq saw a slight decrease of around 0.25%.
And for anyone watching the smaller caps, the Russell 2000 actually climbed almost 0.7%. So you've got this real split personality in the traditional markets.
It's the same story in crypto, too. Bitcoin managed a tiny gain, but Ethereum is down just a bit. It really is a mixed bag, isn't it? No clear direction.
Exactly. And I always say, these small fluctuations can be precursors to bigger moves. It's like a whispered secret before the loud cheer. And that dichotomy you mentioned between the Dow being up while the S&P and Nasdaq are down, what do you make of that?
Well, it really seems to hint that investors are favoring that blue chip safety in the Dow. Maybe they're seeing some uncertainty on the horizon and sticking with the big, stable names.
That's a great point, but then, as you noted, the Russell 2000 is stepping up, which suggests some investors still see promise in the risk-reward of smaller companies. It's a fascinating push and pull.
It really is. So let's pivot to energy, because there's a lot of chatter there. WTI crude oil is at the highs of the day, part of what some are calling an everything rally.
And there's a huge geopolitical angle here. You have former President Trump speaking at the UN about Europe potentially cutting off Russian oil, and at the same time, we're seeing ongoing attacks on Russian oil infrastructure. It's a very complex situation.
It's a perfect storm of factors. And speaking of energy, did you see this Blackstone story? They're leading a massive $7 billion investment in a liquefied natural gas, or LNG project.
$7 billion. That is not chump change. It's a huge signal of confidence in LNG's role in the global energy mix, even as the renewable narrative gets stronger. Fossil fuels are still attracting serious capital.
Absolutely. And sticking with oil for a second, there's another headline catching my eye. Something to build on? A small series of higher lows in oil. It's about this subtle, resilient, upward momentum for WTI crude.
So a technical indicator suggesting a bullish sentiment, even with all the political turmoil. It's like a small flame that could grow into something much bigger. The question is whether it's fundamentals or politics fanning it.
A question we'll be watching closely. Now let's shift gears to tech. There's always something happening with Nvidia, isn't there?
Always. And right now, there's a big discussion about whether CoreWeave bears, people betting against the stock, are about to get burned. New Nvidia deals, especially the rumored $100 billion partnership with OpenAI, are sparking a ton of optimism.
Right, I saw one analyst even upgraded CoreWeave to a buy, arguing that this whole neocloud segment is poised for a massive wave of new business. Nvidia really does seem to be shaping the entire landscape.
But there's always a but in investing, right? That same OpenAI deal is also raising some concerns. The worries that Nvidia is investing in companies that then turn around and buy its chips. It creates a potential overlap of interest that could hurt their margins down the line.
That's a classic case of weighing short-term strategy against long-term risk. For now, though, the demand for their chips still looks incredibly robust. It's a debate we're seeing all over the market.
Definitely. And while we're on market-moving stories, this next one is huge for finance. It looks like Morgan Stanley is on the verge of offering crypto trading through E-Trade.
Wow, that could be groundbreaking. If a major institution like Morgan Stanley fully embraces crypto, it suggests it's becoming a much more mainstream asset class. Imagine logging into your brokerage and seeing Bitcoin right next to your stocks.
It would be a game changer. But, while we're talking about market movers, we have to touch on the political dimension. The risk of a government shutdown is now higher after former President Trump canceled a key meeting with Democrats.
And a shutdown has real-world consequences, impacting everything from federal paychecks to air travel. It's a stark reminder of how much politics can sway the economy.
And that's not the only political headache. The U.S. economy is still struggling to adjust to tariffs. Businesses are feeling the pinch from higher costs and slower demand, and many have had to reduce hiring.
So even if some think the worst of the trade war is over, the lingering effects are still there. It really raises questions about the long-term impact of those policies.
It really does. It feels like the market is a toddler deciding on lunch. 1 minute it's carrots, the next it's a cookie extravaganza. It definitely keeps us on our toes.
That's a perfect analogy. And speaking of things to watch, let's run through a few more key stories. First, after hitting a record high on that OpenAI news, Nvidia shares were actually down a bit this morning.
A classic, buy the rumor, sell the news situation, perhaps. It shows investors are constantly reassessing, especially in tech.
Exactly. Another interesting story is in IT services. Blue Mantis acquired a firm called Creo Inc., which expands their reach into Canada and boosts their ServiceNow capabilities. It's a smart, strategic move.
It shows that in this digital world, having both tech prowess and cross-border operations is a huge advantage. It's like having the best map for a long road trip.
And here's a weird one for you. Innovation Beverage Group might merge with Block Fuel Energy, a beverage company and an energy company, together.
That is an unexpected pairing. It makes you wonder what kind of new synergies they're hoping to unlock. It's a clear sign that in today's market, even the most unlikely sectors can converge to create something new.
So, John, if we pull all of this together, tech, energy, finance, what's the big picture? In tech, it's all about Nvidia. Is it setting the stage for a renaissance? Or is it getting too complex?
That's the multi-billion-dollar question. And in energy, you have that huge LNG investment from Blackstone showing confidence, but at the same time, the oil sector is a tangled web of geopolitics. It's a delicate balance.
And then in finance, you have Morgan Stanley leaning into the future with crypto, while the broader economy is still dealing with the fallout from past trade policies. It's like trying to balance a checkbook on a roller coaster.
So true. And all of this has global implications. A shift in European energy sourcing or a big move by Nvidia sends ripples around the world. So what are the experts predicting with all this uncertainty?
Well, the thinking is there will be a continued focus on safety, which we see with the Dow's strength. But at the same time, moves like Morgan Stanley's into crypto show a big appetite for risk and innovation.
So the advice for investors might be to find a balance, right? Diversify between those safe, reliable assets and some of these high-growth potential plays to weather the volatility.
Exactly. It really comes back to that core question for our listeners. How do you reconcile that cautious optimism in the broad market with the high-risk, high-reward allure of sectors like crypto and tech?
That's the question every investor has to answer for themselves. So to quickly summarize today, we've got mixed, mostly flat markets. We have major developments in energy with LNG and oil, and a spotlight on Nvidia's bold, if controversial, strategy in tech.
And we have traditional finance, with Morgan Stanley finally making a big move toward crypto. Each story is a piece of this incredibly complex puzzle that is the market.
And helping us make sense of that puzzle is our sponsor, Pantheon AI, your information co-pilot designed to help you navigate through all this noise and find actionable insights.
As we wrap up, we encourage everyone to reflect on these signals. Think about how global events could transform your own strategy, and remember that learning about all this shouldn't feel like a full-time job.
Well said, Sarah. Thank you for spending your morning with us on the PAI Morning Briefing. We hope it was insightful and maybe even a little entertaining.
Come back tomorrow for our next episode. Until then, keep questioning, keep investing smartly, and keep that curiosity burning bright. Pantheon AI, your information co-pilot.
Because learning shouldn't feel like a full-time job. Take care and see you next time.